Howdy, and welcome to the next episode of Random Jank. Now, for the last few weeks I've been talking about the guilds of Ravnica, but I'm going to take a little bit of a break from that because I figure if I talk about everything all at once, I'm going to run out of ideas for these videos. Now, instead, there was a comment that was posted on one of my very first videos that was talking about how I should talk about things like Two-Headed Giant, and it made me think that there is more to Magic than just playing one-on-one. Predominantly, yes, it is one person against another, you start at 20 life, and you're just trying to kill that person. However, there are a bunch of multiplayer formats for, when you have a big group of friends and you're just chilling and playing games. And today I'm going to be talking about those formats. So, we're going to start off with number 1, Two-Headed Giant. Now, under normal circumstances, you're just playing a one-on-one game. In Two-Headed Giant, you have a tag team partner and you're playing against somebody else. Instead of having the normal 20 starting life, you actually have 30. And the rules for deck building are ever so slightly different. Normally you can only have 4 copies of any given card in your deck, but the person that you're playing with can also only have 4 copies of any given card in their deck. And there can't be 8 copies total. You have to have 4 copies total spread across both of your decks. So it's going to be a little bit different in terms of how you make your deck. Now, any spell that says any opponent, you can usually target either one or the other. But if it says all opponents, it affects both players at the same time. So hypothetically speaking, you have Suture Priest out, which is anytime a creature of yours comes into play, you gain a life, and anytime your opponent casts a creature spell, they lose a life. Well, it's only going to target the one opponent in that particular case, because it's only one opponent that's casting the creature spell at any given time. But it does affect their global life total. Now, another card is Exsanguate, which is 2 black and X, and whenever you cast that, for whatever the X cost is, it deals that much damage to all opponents, and you gain that much life. So let's say you tap for 5X. Well, you have 2 opponents, so they're losing 5 life each, which affects their total life total, making them drop down by 10, and you gain 10 life because 2 people just lost 5 life. Now, the key thing about this is it's actually how I won my last pre-release, because I was going Dimir and Orzhov, and the Orzhov keyword is Extort, where you pay 1 and your target opponent loses a life and you gain a life. But it affects both opponents at the same time, so it made it a very broken mechanic for the Two-Headed Giant that I was a part of. So, we have all the spell abilities and stuff, but what about creatures and attacking? Now, in a normal game, you only have one person that you have to worry about attacking. In this, you actually have 2 different targets. However, attacking and blocking all happens at the same time. So your opponent's creatures can block your creatures no matter which opponent you're actually attacking. So let's say left and right. And you want to attack the right guy because there's a specific ability. Let's say it's Night Veil Spectre, and if that creature hits, that player would exile the top card of his library. However, the other head has a creature that can block flying creatures. Well, he can use his creature to block your creature even though you're not targeting him with the attack. It's just one of those things that the partner aspect of Two-Headed Giant can help you out. And that's all I have to say about Two-Headed Giant. So the next multiplayer format that I want to talk about is Archenemy. Now, it's one of those things that really only came into prominence around the time when Duels of the Planeswalkers 2012 came out on the Xbox, PS3, and Steam. And what it is, it's a kind of format where it's all against one guy. That one guy starts off with more life than everybody else based on the number of players that there are. And on top of just the normal deck that he has a scheme deck. Every turn he flips over the top card of that scheme deck and something happens. Now it could be something minor like reaching for 2 more lands out of his deck and putting him into play tapped, or it could be stealing one of your creatures and keeping it until one of you dies, or until you kill it. It really just depends. Now the entire goal of this is to attack the one guy that has the scheme deck and reduce his life total to 0. But the fact that he starts off with a higher life total and the scheme decks are all kind of skewed to be way more powerful than the cards that are already out, you have to rely on a lot of cheap tricks to try and overcome that extra deck that he's got. But it's a very fun way to play if you've got 4 people just hanging around and, well, you're tired of losing to one guy who happens to win all the time. Now you can all gang up on him and it's part of the game. So the next multiplayer format that I'm going to talk about is Plane Chase. Now, under normal circumstances, it just works like a regular multiplayer game. You have at least 4 people, you all start at 20 life, and you're trying to beat the crap out of each other. However, in the center is going to be the Plane Chase deck. Now, what that is it just represents the different planes and stuff that you can go to while playing Magic. Now, it has a static ability all on its own. Sometimes it gives something very basic, like giving all your green creatures +1/+1, and sometimes it allows you to do different interactions. However, while playing the game, you have this little thing right here. Now, the side that I'm holding up is the Planeswalk side of things. as you're going through the game, you have a chance to roll the die. If it lands on this symbol, you actually go to the next plane that is in that deck. And then there is this symbol, which allows you to do a special ability that is based on whatever plane you happen to be on at the time. Now, in order to be able to use that specific ability, it's going to cost you mana. Now, the first roll is free, but everything after that is going to cost you one more. So the first roll after the first one is going to be 1. The next roll after that is 2, and then 3 and 4, and so on and so forth until you either plane chase or roll the special ability die that you wanted in the first place. It's a really fun multiplayer format. It does get kind of chaotic because there are times when you want to cast your spells, but you don't want to be on the plane that you're in. It allows for new strategic components to come into play, especially in multiplayer matches. And the last one that I'm going to be talking about in terms of multiplayer formats is Commander, or EDH, which stands for Elder Dragon Highlander, and it basically stands for the 5 legendary dragon cards that the format was actually built around at first. Now, it's a completely new kind of deck format making. Instead of having your normal 60-card deck and 15-card sideboard, you have 100 cards. One of them is a legendary creature of your choosing. Most of the time, people choose a multicolored creature because the other cards in your deck can only be of the same colors that your commander is. So if you only have a green commander, you can only use green cards for the rest of your deck, with the exception of artifacts. But in terms of other cards that you can have, you're only allowed to have 1 copy of any given card, with the exception of basic lands, because they want to at least be able to have whatever colors that you're trying to bring out. Now, to be able to play EDH, instead of having the normal 20 life total that you start off with, you actually start with 40. However, the downside to this is that if any one commander deals you at least 21 points of damage directly, you lose the game. So if you have a way of bringing your life up to 192 billion, because there are infinite combos in every format, you still only need to take 21 commander damage to lose the game. It's kind of like how Poison worked when it was in Standard a few formats ago. Now, Commander is one of those things where even the people who make Magic, even though it started as like one of those new things that only social players started, the people at Magic actually made this an official format. So starting with, I believe, this year, you're going to start seeing a lot more things built specifically for Commander rather than just blocks of cards that would be in Standard and Legacy and all the other formats that are available. And it's a very popular format that if you go to any of your local game stores, chances are you're going to be able to find a lot of players playing this particular format. So, I hope you enjoyed this week's look into the formats that are multiplayer. Next week, I'm going to be continuing on with the Guilds of Ravnica. There's only 4 more left, so hang in there. Be sure to comment on this video, like it if you like it, share it with all your friends, give me some more suggestions, because I love hearing back from everybody who watches these videos, and I'll see you next week. And their special ability is Unleash. Now, normally it's a creature that just comes out, no problem. However, as you're casting it, you choose whether or not to unleash that. Builds and their keywords and special cards worked well together. And this week, I'm talking about 2 more. We're going to start off with Simic. Simic's keyword is Evolve.